The impossible invitation, the Assembly's surprise, the grand chamber of the Galactic Assembly fell into stunned silence. Ambassador Krelth of the Varnian Collective stared at the holographic document floating before him, his three eyes blinking in rapid succession. Around the circular hall, representatives from 47 different species shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. "They cannot be serious," muttered Counselor Yash, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light into rainbow patterns across the walls. "The humans have been part of the galactic community for barely 30 cycles. They have not earned the right to even request the trial of ascension." Supreme Arbiter Morveth raised one of his 6 arms, calling for order. His ancient species had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and his voice carried the weight of millennia. "The rules are clear. Any species that has achieved faster than light travel and maintained peaceful contact with it, at least 10 galactic members may request the trial. Humanity has met these requirements, but the trial has never been completed," protested Ambassador Krelth, his mandibles clicking nervously. "In the 17,000 years since its creation, only 12 species have attempted it. None have passed more than 3 of the 7 challenges. Most failed at the first. The Kronthar Empire, one of the mightiest civilizations in galactic history, managed only 4 before admitting defeat. The human representative, Ambassador Sarah Chen, stood calmly at the center of the chamber. She was small compared to most of the assembled beings, her simple gray suit a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and bioluminescent displays of her peers. Yet something in her stance commanded attention. "We understand the historical difficulty of the trial," Sarah said, her voice clear and steady. "We also understand that success would grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, access to protected trade routes, and the right to establish colonies in contested regions. We are willing to accept the challenge." Morveth studied the human carefully. The Trial of Ascension was designed by the founders as the ultimate test of a species' worthiness. It is not merely about technological advancement or military might. It tests adaptability, creativity, empathy, and the ability to thrive in conditions that would destroy lesser civilizations. Many species have lost entire expeditions to these challenges. "Are you certain humanity wishes to proceed?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "We are certain. Planet Infernus, Fire and Fury." The first challenge awaited humanity on a world the Galactic Assembly had designated as Planet Infernus. The name was apt. The planet existed in a tight orbit around a binary star system, its surface a hellscape of active volcanoes, lava rivers, and toxic atmospheric conditions that could melt standard starship hulls within hours. The objective was simple in description, but nightmarish in execution. Establish a functional mining operation and extract 10,000 tons of thermium ore, a rare element that only formed under extreme heat and pressure. The ore was essential for advanced energy systems, but its extraction required sustained presence on the planet's surface. When the Kronthar had attempted this challenge 800 years ago, they had lost 3,000 soldiers and miners before abandoning the effort. The volcanic activity was unpredictable, and the planet's crust was so unstable that settlements would collapse into magma chambers without warning. The Galactic Council's observation team, led by Counselor Yash herself, arrived in orbit 3 days after the human fleet. They expected to find humanity attempting the same strategies that had failed so many others. Heavily shielded bases, extensive cooling systems, and drone miners that would inevitably fail in the extreme conditions. Instead, they found something completely unexpected: the human solution. "What are they doing?" Yash asked, her crystalline body flickering with confusion as she studied the sensor readings. "They are not building on the surface. They are inside the volcano." The observation team watched in amazement as human engineers guided massive drilling platforms down into the caldera of the planet's largest volcano. Rather than fighting against the heat and instability, they were embracing it. Commander Marcus Webb, leading the human operation, explained their approach via communication link. "We realized that fighting Infernus was the wrong strategy. The planet is what it is, so we decided to work with it instead. The humans had designed mobile platforms that floated on the lava itself, using the molten rock as both a heat source and a transportation medium. The platforms were coated with a ceramic compound derived from the planet's own volcanic ash, creating a material that could withstand the extreme temperatures indefinitely. But the true genius lay in their energy system. Instead of bringing power sources from off-world, the humans had developed thermal converters that transformed the planet's geothermal energy directly into electricity. The hotter the environment, the more power they generated. Infernus, which had defeated every other species through its extreme heat, was actually providing the energy needed for its own exploitation. "They are using the lava flows as conveyor belts," reported Yash's assistant, a young Varnian scientist named Keltor. "The thermium ore is denser than the surrounding magma. They are using gravity separation to let the ore sink to collection points, then extracting it with magnetic systems. It is elegant. It is efficient. It is something none of us considered." Within 40 days, humanity had extracted not 10,000 tons of thermium, but 15,000. They had turned an impossible death world into a profitable mining operation that could sustain itself indefinitely. The Galactic Council received the report with a mixture of surprise and concern. Humanity had passed the first challenge, something only 7 species had accomplished before them. But 6 challenges remained. The frozen abyss, a world of ice and terror. The second challenge took humanity to the opposite extreme. Planet Glacium existed at the edge of its solar system, a frozen world where temperatures dropped to just above absolute zero. The atmosphere had long ago frozen and fallen to the surface as crystalline snow. The challenge seemed straightforward. Retrieve biological samples from beneath the planet's ice sheet, where ancient life forms lay preserved from an era when Glacium had been warm and vibrant. But Glacium held a terrible secret. The ice itself was alive. The Zelthian Confederation had discovered this 5 centuries ago when their expedition simply vanished. It took 3 years before a rescue mission found the remains. Ships crushed and encased in ice that had somehow grown around them like a predator consuming prey. The ice formations were not natural crystals, but rather a form of silicon-based life that existed in a state between solid and liquid, able to move and grow at temperatures that would freeze ordinary matter solid. These crystalline entities, which the Council called the Shardlings, were territorial and aggressive. They could sense vibration and heat, swarming toward any source of energy. Previous expeditions had tried brute force, attempting to melt or blast their way through, but every application of heat or explosive energy only attracted more Shardlings. The human approach was different, and once again, it defied conventional thinking. Silent running Dr. Elena Vasquez, leading the human scientific team, had studied every available record of the Shardlings. She noticed something others had missed. The creatures did not attack the planet's native ice formations, only foreign objects. They were not predators, but rather an immune system, protecting Glacium from external intrusion. "We need to become part of the planet," Elena explained to her team. "Not invaders, but natives." The humans developed suits made from Glacium's own ice, grown in special chambers that mimicked the planet's natural formation process. They moved slowly, minimizing vibration. They used no active heating systems, relying instead on passive insulation and their own body heat, carefully controlled to match the ambient temperature of the ice around them. Most importantly, they communicated with the Shardlings. Not through language, but through pattern and vibration. Elena's team discovered that the Shardlings responded to certain frequencies, rhythms that matched the natural creaking and settling of Glacium's ice sheets. By reproducing these patterns, the humans could signal their peaceful intent. It took weeks of careful study and patient interaction, but gradually, the Shardlings began to accept the human presence. They would flow around the explorers rather than attacking them, sometimes even seeming to guide them toward areas of interest beneath the ice. When the humans finally extracted their biological samples, they did so with the Shardlings' cooperation. They had turned enemies into allies through understanding and respect. Counselor Yash watched the reports with growing unease. 2 challenges completed. They make it look simple, but these are tests that have broken civilizations. The living ocean, contact. The 3rd challenge brought humanity to Aquaria Prime, a planet entirely covered by a single vast ocean. Beneath the waves existed an ecosystem of incredible complexity, and somewhere in the depths lived a species of extraordinary intelligence. The challenge was to make contact with this species and establish communication. proving humanity's ability to recognize and respect alien intelligence, even in radically different forms. The difficulty was immense. The ocean dwellers existed at depths where pressure would crush most vessels. They communicated through bioluminescent patterns and chemical signals that human technology could barely detect. They had no interest in the surface world and had ignored every previous attempt at contact. The Drethani Union had spent 2 years attempting this challenge, deploying increasingly sophisticated probes and communication devices. All had been ignored or destroyed. Eventually, they concluded that the ocean dwellers were not truly intelligent, merely operating on complex instinct. The Council had accepted this explanation, and the challenge had remained incomplete for 300 years. Captain James Morrison, commander of the human submersible fleet, had a different theory. What if they have been trying to communicate and we just were not listening properly? The human team spent the first month simply observing. They deployed passive sensors throughout the ocean, collecting data on every chemical signal, every light pattern, every current and temperature change. They watched how the ocean dwellers interacted with each other and with their environment. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a xenobiologist, made the breakthrough. They are not ignoring us. They are asking us questions and we have been failing to answer. Look at this pattern. He displayed a series of bioluminescent flashes that had been recorded near every probe humanity had deployed. This is not random. It is a query. They are asking what we are. The humans built a new kind of probe, one that could replicate the complex light patterns of the ocean dwellers. But instead of trying to force human concepts into alien language, they started with the simplest possible message: recognition. The probe pulsed a pattern that meant, essentially, I see you. The response came within hours. The ocean around the probe lit up with thousands of bioluminescent creatures, creating a display of stunning beauty and complexity. The message was clear: we see you too. First contact had been established not through technological superiority, but through patience and the willingness to learn. The Council observers watched as humanity began a dialogue with an intelligence that had been silent for centuries. And they began to understand that something unprecedented was happening. Humanity was not just passing the challenges. They were redefining what was possible. The verdict of stars understanding the ocean mind. The dialogue with Aquaria Prime's ocean dwellers expanded rapidly once true communication began. The humans discovered that the beings were not a single species but rather a collective consciousness, formed by millions of individual organisms working in harmony. They thought in patterns of light and chemical cascades, their language expressing concepts that human words could barely capture. Dr. Tanaka spent weeks in deep submersion, wearing a specially designed suit covered in bioluminescent panels that allowed him to participate directly in the conversations. He emerged with insights that fascinated and humbled the human team. They have been alone for so long, Kenji reported to Captain Morrison. They knew of the surface world, knew that others existed above, but every contact attempt felt like shouting to them, aggressive, demanding. We were the first to simply introduce ourselves and wait for a response. The ocean dwellers shared knowledge that had been hidden for millennia, information about ocean currents throughout the galaxy, sustainable resource harvesting, and biological technologies that worked in harmony with living systems. In return, humanity taught them about the stars above, about the vast community of worlds beyond their ocean. When the human team finally departed Aquaria Prime, they left behind communication relays and a promise to return. The ocean dwellers, for the first time in their history, had friends among the surface worlds. Counselor Yasha's report to the Galactic Assembly was brief but profound. Challenge 3 complete. Humanity has made contact where we saw only silence. The gravity wells, dancing with physics planet Chaos, earned its name honestly. A massive world with 3 moons in unstable orbits, Chaos experienced gravitational fluctuations that made conventional colonization impossible. Gravity would shift from crushing weight to near weightlessness multiple times per day, following no predictable pattern. The planet's surface was rich in gravitonium, a rare element essential for creating artificial gravity systems, but harvesting it required surviving conditions that could liquefy bones one moment and send equipment floating into space the next. The Tyrellian Dominion had attempted this challenge, using massive gravity stabilizers, trying to create zones of normal gravity within the chaos. The stabilizers had failed catastrophically when an unexpected gravitational surge overloaded them, killing hundreds of Tyrellian miners. Humanity studied the problem from a different angle. Instead of fighting the changing gravity, they designed equipment and procedures that could function in any gravitational condition. Engineer Maria Santos led the development of adaptive structures that could shift their configuration based on current gravity levels. In high gravity, buildings compressed into squat, reinforced domes. In low gravity, they extended into tall towers that maximized space. The structures were not static but organic, constantly adjusting to the environment. The mining equipment was equally innovative. Rather than heavy machinery that became useless in low gravity, the humans developed modular systems where components could reconfigure themselves based on conditions. In high gravity, mining was done with compact, powerful drills. In low gravity, the same components rearranged into wide area collection nets that could gather floating debris. But the true breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young human engineer named David Liu, who had grown up in low-gravity space stations, recognized that the changing gravity was not random chaos, but rather a complex rhythm created by the interaction of chaos and its three moons. It is like music, David explained, displaying his calculations. Complex music, sure, but there is a pattern. If we can predict the gravitational changes even a few minutes in advance, we can prepare for them. The humans developed an early warning system that could forecast gravitational shifts with increasing accuracy. Combined with their adaptive technology, this turned chaos from an impossible death trap into a challenging but manageable workplace. Within 60 days, humanity had established a thriving mining operation on chaos. The gravitonium flowed steadily off-world, and the human workers had even begun to enjoy the strange environment, developing sports and activities that took advantage of the varying gravity. 4 challenges complete, Ambassador Krelth reported to the assembly, his voice tinged with disbelief. They have now surpassed the Kronthar Empire's record. We are witnessing history. The Silent Zone, a world without energy. The 5th challenge presented a different kind of impossibility. Planet Null existed in a region of space where quantum effects created an energy-dampening field. Any form of active energy generation or transmission simply stopped working within the field. Electronics failed. Engines died. Even chemical reactions that produced heat or light were suppressed. The planet's surface was shrouded in absolute darkness and cold. Yet Null's crust contained deposits of voidstone, a mineral that could store energy with perfect efficiency and release it in controlled bursts. Voidstone was the key to creating truly efficient batteries and power storage systems, but harvesting it required working in conditions where modern technology simply ceased to function. The crystalline consensus had attempted this challenge using purely biological systems, growing specialized organisms that could function without conventional energy. The experiment had been a disaster when the organisms mutated in Null's strange environment and turned hostile. Humanity took inspiration from their own past, reaching back thousands of years to technologies that predated electricity and engines. The human expedition to Null used purely mechanical systems, wind-up motors, clockwork computers, and optical communication systems that used mirrors and shutters instead of radio waves. They built structures from Null's own materials, assembled with hand tools and muscle power. They used water wheels powered by Null's rivers and windmills that captured the planet's fierce atmospheric currents. It was like watching humanity's industrial revolution, compressed into months instead of centuries, but with the benefit of modern engineering knowledge applied to ancient principles. Professor Alan Wright, leading the mechanical engineering team, found the work strangely liberating. We have become so dependent on electronics and power systems that we forgot the elegance of pure mechanics. A well-designed machine needs no batteries, no power source beyond its own motion. It just works. The mining operation on Null was a marvel of precision engineering. The humans developed purely mechanical drills that used the kinetic energy of falling weights to power their operation. They transported voidstone using rail systems where the cart's own momentum on downhill sections provided the energy to pull them back uphill when loaded. Communication was achieved through an elaborate system of signal towers that used semaphore and heliograph principles. transmitting messages through line-of-sight optical signals that could cross continents within hours. The Galactic Council's observation team struggled to understand what they were witnessing. "This is primitive technology," one observer protested. "How can this possibly be efficient?" But the numbers did not lie. The human operation on Null was extracting voidstone faster and more safely than any powered system could have achieved. By embracing limitations rather than fighting them, humanity had found success. 5 challenges complete, Morveth announced to the full Galactic Assembly. Humanity now stands alone in history. No other species has progressed this far. The Nexus Core, the impossible puzzle. The 6th and 7th challenges were unlike anything that had come before. The Nexus Core was not a planet, but rather an artificial construct created by the founders themselves. A test of pure problem-solving ability and cosmic understanding. The Nexus existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its structure shifting between realities. At its center lay a puzzle that required not just intelligence, but the ability to perceive and manipulate reality in ways that challenged the fundamental understanding of physics. Previous species had spent years studying the Nexus without making progress. The structure seemed to defy analysis, changing its configuration every time someone thought they understood it. The few who ventured inside the Nexus reported experiencing time dilation, spatial anomalies, and perceptual shifts that left them disoriented and confused. Humanity approached the Nexus with both scientific rigor and creative thinking. Dr. Lisa Chen, a theoretical physicist, led a team that included not just scientists but also artists, musicians, and philosophers. "The Nexus is not just a physical puzzle," Lisa explained. "It is a test of perspective. The founders wanted to see if a species could think beyond their normal reality. The human team spent weeks studying the Nexus from every angle, both literal and metaphorical. They discovered that the structure responded to consciousness itself. That observation affected its state in ways that went beyond quantum mechanics. The breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. A human composer named Marcus Williams was working on a piece inspired by the Nexus when he noticed that certain musical patterns seemed to resonate with the structure's shifting configurations. "What? If the Nexus is not a puzzle to be solved, but a symphony to be played?" Marcus suggested. "What if we are not supposed to understand it but rather harmonize with it?" The team developed a new approach. Instead of trying to force the Nexus into a stable configuration, they worked with its shifting nature. They treated each dimensional transition as a note in a larger composition, each spatial anomaly as part of a grand design. It took 3 months of careful work, but gradually, the Nexus began to respond. The random-seeming shifts became patterns. The disorienting transitions became navigable. The humans were not solving the Nexus. They were learning its language. When Ambassador Sarah Chen stepped into the heart of the Nexus Core, she did not see an alien puzzle. She saw beauty and order underlying apparent chaos. She saw the Founders' test not as a challenge to overcome but as an invitation to expand human perception. The Nexus opened, revealing its secrets willingly to those who had learned to see beyond their limitations. The Assembly's decision. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from every member species had gathered to witness the final judgment on humanity's trial of ascension. The observation reports from all 6 challenges had been distributed and verified. The evidence was undeniable. Supreme Arbiter Morveth stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient presence commanding absolute attention. In 17,000 years, no species has completed more than 4 challenges of the trial of ascension. Many of our greatest civilizations have failed completely, yet humanity, a young species barely known to the galactic community, has completed 6 challenges in less than 2 years. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the assembly. But there remains one final challenge, and it is perhaps the most important of all. A holographic display appeared above the chamber, showing not a planet or structure but rather the Galactic Assembly itself. The 7th challenge is not external but internal. It is the judgment of this council. We must decide whether humanity has truly proven themselves worthy of ascension, not just through their accomplishments but through the manner in which those accomplishments were achieved. Counselor Yash spoke first. "I have watched humanity closely throughout these trials. I expected to see aggression, domination, the imposition of will through superior technology. Instead, I witnessed adaptation, cooperation, and creativity. Humanity succeeded not by conquering challenges, but by understanding them. They turned enemies into allies, impossibilities into opportunities. They have taught this council that there are perspectives we have never considered. Ambassador Krelth rose to speak, his earlier skepticism replaced with admiration. The Varnian Collective has existed for 12,000 years. We pride ourselves on our technological achievements. Yet humanity showed us that sometimes the solution to a problem is not more technology, but different thinking. They defeated Null not with advanced power systems, but with elegant mechanics. They communicated with Aquaria Prime not through sophisticated translation, but through patient listening. Humanity has earned their place among us. One by one, the representatives spoke. Some praised humanity's ingenuity. Others highlighted their respect for alien life and different ways of thinking. A few expressed concern about humanity's rapid advancement. But even these voices acknowledged that the trials had been completed fairly and impressively. Finally, Morveth called for the formal vote. The question before this council is clear. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly, with all rights and responsibilities therein? The vote was not unanimous, but the majority was overwhelming. Of 47 member species, 43 voted in favor of humanity's ascension. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once more at the center of the chamber, but this time she was surrounded not by skeptical observers but by welcoming peers. On behalf of humanity, I accept this honor with humility and gratitude. We have learned much during these trials, not just about ourselves, but about the incredible diversity and wisdom of the galactic community. We look forward to contributing to the council and learning from our fellow members. Morveth approached Sarah, presenting her with the Medallion of Ascension, an ancient artifact that marked her species' achievement. Humanity has done more than pass the trials. You have reminded us all that growth and adaptation are the marks of true civilization. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Chen. We are honored to call humanity our equals. Epilogue: A New Perspective. 6 months after humanity's ascension, the Galactic Council faced a new challenge. A region of space known as the Shattered Expanse, long considered too dangerous for colonization, had become strategically important due to discovered resources. Traditional approaches had all been deemed too risky or expensive. At the council meeting to discuss the issue, it was Ambassador Krelth who made an unexpected suggestion. Perhaps we should ask the humans how they would approach this problem. There were murmurs of agreement around the chamber. Humanity's unique perspective had already influenced several council decisions, and their reputation for creative problem-solving had grown throughout the galactic community. Sarah Chen smiled as she reviewed the data on the Shattered Expanse. We would need to study it more closely, but my initial thought is that we are asking the wrong question. Instead of wondering how to survive in the Expanse, we should ask what the Expanse has to teach us. Counselor Yash's crystalline form flickered with what might have been amusement. Spoken like a true member of the council, humanity has indeed earned their place among the stars. As the meeting continued, with representatives from dozens of species contributing ideas and perspectives, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted in the galactic community. Humanity had not just joined the council, they had reminded every species present that there were always new ways to think, new solutions to discover, and new possibilities to explore. The trial of ascension had tested humanity and found them worthy, but in the process humanity had tested the galaxy's assumptions and opened minds to fresh perspectives. In the end, perhaps that was the true purpose of the trials all along, not to judge species, but to help civilizations grow beyond their limitations. Among the stars, humanity had found their place, and the galaxy was better for it.